So this is a shir in Sefer Mamorim Tofresh Mem Zion, which is part of the Sefer Klori Tofresh Mem Bo Ad Tofresh Nun, and we are learning the Maimah from Pasha Zocher Tofresh Mem Zion Zocher Eish Asher Solach Molek, and we are holding on Omid Pei Daled of the Sefer, and tonight is Tuesday night, Oyer Lakof Tes Shvat Toshinai base. So we were holding Beneger to the union of Das, what the Rebbe called Das HaMishpashet. And it's interesting, we're dealing with the Klolos Sugya here, which is dealt with in the Shir Tamna we had today. So it's interesting how the Eivshter brings Al Inyanim B'Yachad. I've seen it on many occasions. When you learn one Inyan in Tomchei Tmim, then automatically you find the same Inyan somewhere else, and you find it at a different angle and different even Habiyah and so on. It's really quite amazing. It's happened many times over the years. So this is mamish the same Inyan, but here it's dealt with in much more detail, and it arouses certain questions and insights into the matter which are from a slightly different angle in Tanya. However, we saw that the Rebbe said that from Bina, or in Bina, I'm sorry, within the Koyach HaBina, Alidei, what the Odom is married by his bonanas in Gedulas Ein Sof Baruch Hu, but that brings him to a gilui and an arousal of Midas Shebamoichin, Bechin of Avira, what he called it, Zion Taktoinim de Tavuna. Tavuna being Oisius ben Ubas, and it's the that we saw that Tavuna was the hispilus of the Moyach to and upon the Noisei and the content of these bonus that was Mizbein and Barichas. And those are called Midas Siklium in other places, or is Pilus Siklis or Midas Shabamoichin. They have different names, but they all indicate the same basic concept. And after that is Miyad Nimshicha is Pilus Balei. Now, when he writes Miyad, that's ideally speaking. That's how it should be. Of course, there can be interferences, mitzad the Nefesh Abamis, mitzad other inyanim, which can interfere with that. Al Tzada deal, then it should be Miyad Nimshacha is Pilus Balev. And we see that who inyan meshichas halev shenimshach acharei ha'is pilus shebamoya. Now we can suggest why the Rebbe said this is miyad, because it's immediate, because this is not the ultimate pilus of the midas shebalev. It's not the ultimate perfection of gilui ha'is pilus morgeshes in the lay kipshute. Noah then, he said there's nimshach a certain pilus in the lave, but it's in the form of a drawing of the lave. Mashicha means like drawing after. The lave is nimshach is drawn and proned towards, which is nimshach acharei ais pilus shebamayach. In other words, there's a certain arousal on the part of the heart, and it leans upwards towards the message of the Midas Shebamoichin, and somehow or other senses and feels, and that can be immediate, because it's not yet the ultimate finality of Midas. It's like a sensitivity of the heart immediately following the Midas Shebamoichin in that general theme of the Midah which was being aimed at by these bonas, and the heart reacts by rousing up and expressing a certain readiness to be makabel, that inyan. And that's called Das HaMishpasha. It's a very Amazing idea. And we find that somebody who has what's called gadlus hamoichin, the really greatness of and full adulthood of ability to be misbeinen in his moyach, and he has what we call gadlus hamidas also. It's more in kuntres atfilin, kuntres avoida. There, the midas rise up and follow the moichin entirely. There's like no break point between the it's a mashicha of the leiv to the is pilus amidah shabamoyach, and that's complete, and all the midah becomes like a midah joined up with the moichin altogether and becomes a very delicate and high form of his pilus. But that's called pnimis amidas and pnimis moichin. Over here we're not holding by that, but here we do say that at the beginning there's a certain movement of the heart upwards towards the, and that we could suggest that when he's been misbeinen b'amitias, then he feels a certain reaction in the heart, which is leading towards genuine midas, but is not yet in the heart, and that's called mashichas aleiv, and that's what we're going to call here das hamishpashit. So now he puts in just like a maimah muzika, almost like a bracketed remark. Ulefiyomim yesh inyan mashichas aleiv. A person can be nimshach after coming, or he can sort of have a feeling. It's what we might almost call intuition and sensitivity to in a higher state in himself. What he feels attracted to a certain inyan, and he feels that in that direction he can gain a tremendous toilas, or he feels that that has a great message for him. It's kedai to do that, all sorts of expressions of that nature. So he said, Beloshan Ashkenaz, the heart tzitz there too. The heart pulls you and draws you towards that particular thing. We can suggest that's another inyan that doesn't have to do with moed, but that's going up in a higher realm beyond the actual inyan of the moichin, and that's like you might say the heart's field, there's an expression, his heart feels that way, his senses, it's a higher inyan altogether. V'chan, over here, a kavona, here the purpose, what we're trying to define and bring out here, masha haleiv nimshach acharei hamidah shebamoichin, that the heart goes, as it were, and is nimshach, is drawn and prone after the message of those Ava V'yira Siklim, of those midas in the moichin. In other words, the heart senses, begins to feel a certain, what you might call, lead-in to its ultimate feeling. V'nimshach mibchinas das hamishpasit. And that comes from the first beginning of the function of koyach hadas after koyach habina, and that's called das hamishpashit. Now, that's written in the Siddur. He brings in a footnote down here, the Rebbe. That's written more barichas in the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe, in the Tfilas B'Kol Hashana, and also in the work of the Mittel Rebbe, Pirush HaMilas. The Pirush HaMilas is a sefer of a view of different passages from the davening from the Mittel Rebbe. Not from the whole davening, but from passages here and there. So over there, they explain a little bit in more length this whole concept. Over here, that's the union. That there's a movement on the part of the moyer to attract the midas, because they've already got a certain midas siklim. Now, these midas siklim are just, in a general way, that elikus is tov and elikus is great in its own essence, and it's worthwhile having fear and love of that. But it's not fear and love in the real sense. The heart gets drawn after that message and senses that, and that's like you might call a lead-in or a movay to the ultimate midah shebelev, and that's called das, moving out and sort of being mispashet, spreading itself out in its first activity towards the heart. Ach, says the Rebbe, however, ha'ikahu ba'avida she'evoled belev b'chinas eispilus amidas b'morgash. So he said that's already a very delicate inyan, and it's a beginning, as you might say, and there's a certain sensitivity in the heart. But he said the ikka, and that's why I put in the word ach. What ach means like a sort of a modification of what we've said, that ultimately speaking, that's not that. And therefore, the ultimate purpose and the ultimate principle is that you should have a birth in the heart, is pilus amidas b'murgash, that you should feel in the lave, murgash meaning felt and aware, midas in the actual heart, kipshute. Avira be pilus b'murgash. There should be an arousal and a reaction in the soul in a felt way. Murgash. Now, murgash is the touch of feeling yourself, really. Murgash means that you feel deeply your own self, but you feel your elikus through yourself, and you love elikus to a certain extent because of yourself. In other words, you feel involved, and you feel drawn in, and you feel excited and stirred with Avos Hashem. And that's what the ultimate tachlis of the Aveda is. V'alidei bo achachach l'kiyum hamitzvahs b'sur mirah v'asei teiv b'poel mamish. By turning away from evil and doing good, b'poel mamish. Now, with that sentence, the Rebbe's put in an important in which we're now going to develop on at some length. Why do we say that the ultimate purpose of the Aveda and the ultimate shleimus is to reach the pilus murgeshes in the lave, which is already like a form almost of self-interest, like we said today, it's an involvement of the self and a commitment of the self. So if we talk about madregas per se in nefesh, that's a low madrega. And later on he's going to point out there can even be a certain unique lechitainim, a certain nurturement, even to the non-desirable koiches from there, because you can sort of drift out into other inyonim with that hispilus. Because hispilus means, having been affected in a emotional way, it doesn't always lead, in the most safe direction. So, yet nonetheless, that's the ultimate tachlis. Says the Rebbe, why? Because through that, you come to carry out the mitzvahs the way they're really meant to be. Kiyum ha-mitzvahs b'sur mirah v'yasei teiv b'poel mamish. With that he's saying, why would I demand, if I can have a person who has this pilus, a mitzvah, that's a very high and delicate madrega. This Mashiachas Lev we just spoke about is also a delicate thing. Why do we have to have Dafki Yerida into the heart that it should be felt, and which, to a certain extent, even though it's a Yerida, but he said that is the ultimate purpose of everything. Now, in some places, it's written that the reason for that is because basically your Nefesh Abamis lives in that area. Your Nefesh Abamis is in part of the heart. That's where Kamuvu in Tanya, in Perik Tes and Perik Yud and Alamits and Perik Yubais. That's where he lives, the Nefesh Abamis. So in order to really burn away the Nefesh Abamis and weaken his power, and by really great Bali Aveda to even be Mavada the Nefesh Abamis, you've got to deal with him on his level. Therefore, Murgash and his pilus, Koch, as they call it in Yiddish, being stirred up inside the Nefesh, in the heart, well, that goes over into the next door neighbor, into the left ventricle of the heart, and can affect the Nefesh Abamis and take away burn out his enthusiasm and things of that nature. Here the Rebbe is answering a slightly different teretz. It's based on the same basic principle. Over here the Rebbe is saying, why do you need that as pilus b'murgash? Because Tavki through that you'll come to do the mitzvahs, b'poel mamish, with a different enthusiasm. And the ultimate aim of everything in Torah is to bring, that the Torah should bring us to kiyum ha-mitzvahs in the best possible way. So therefore he said, Tavki through this low level, as it were, even though it's an achievement, his pilus, murgeshes in the heart, Tavki through that you'll come to keep the mitzvahs properly. And that's what we're going to see in Perik Dalet, immediately at the beginning of Perik Dalet in Tanya. That's what the Alter Rebbe says, that a makayim and be'emes, that he who keeps the mitzvahs in a genuine way is Misha Oyev Shem Hashem v'chofet l'dov kaboi. Somebody who has Ava, then he keeps the mitzvahs asay. he does everything he can and he does it in a full way and enthusiastic way to keep the mitzvahs. And he who has yiras Hashem and fear of the Eibusha, then he keeps away from the mitzvahs lois Hashem. So that's basically what he's saying here, that if you don't have ahava v'yira, you don't really feel enthused to keep the mitzvahs with a shleimus. Now you can keep the mitzvahs, but you do it through Kabbalah soil, through other inyanim, and that could, at some point or another, dry up a bit. It could cool off. It could become a little bit without chayas, particularly what we call chayas pnimius, into a brand of the pnimius hanefesh in keeping the mitzvahs. Mashenkein, if you got ahava v'yira, then there's this tremendous, as it were, demand of the nefesh and the odom to keep the mitzvahs with all the enthusiasm and fire that we would expect. So that's what he answers now. First of all begins with a moshul gashmi for that. Moshul begashmis hine aleiv hu amamutza bein hamoyach l'sharei ha'evorim. In other words, the middle point, the middle go-between. Mamutza means a go-between, or like a joining madrega. Bein hamoyach l'sharei ha'evorim is the heart. In other words, if you go from moyach and you want to get into activity and you want to stir up the other ivarim, it's only first of all has to go through the heart. Ukiyadua the ikar hashua sachayis uba moyach, that the main dwelling of all the life force, chayis meaning here the life force in general, uba moyach shabarech. Lies mavu in Tanya perik non aleph, perik nun and non aleph and nun beis, that the shortage of all chayes is dafki in the moyach. Ukadei shiyum shach min ha-moyach ha-chayes lahachyeh, so eivorim gashmiyim hu alidei ha-leiv shemi ha-moyach nimshach ha-ruach chayim b'chol ha-yomini shebeleiv. Now what happens is, first of all, the Rebbe, that everything is there in the brain. In the brain it's in a very high and detached, just like the brain below is a thinking, and therefore it's a detached medium. It's not something which is necessarily connected with all the other Ivarim. So how are you going to get to all the other Ivarim? First of all, you send down this message from the brain. Now, this we're talking now simply in Gashmis, not necessarily a high spiritual message, but send down a message into the Chol HaYamini, which is Ruchnias. In other words, first of all, we get a certain Ruchniistic message into the heart, and then that moves over into the Chol HaSmoli, but that's where the dam is. That's where the material or the fuel that needs to be sent to all the other Ivorim. That's where it's situated in the left ventricle of the heart. So there's a certain Ruach Chaim. The Rebbe calls it Ruach Chaim. The brain gives a form of life which is called Ruach. Ruach is a spirit. So the brain is not just pure Gashmistic Chayas, it's like a form of message together with Chayas. And then ultimately, there's a certain Indian, why do I have to live? What am I doing around here? Goes with it. But basically, it's the Chayas, and that's what's Mavu in Tanya. It is basically the Chayas of the Nefesh. Just that the way the brain has it, it's a very edel and maybe even message type of Chayas. And then it goes down, that's called Ruach Chaim. It's life, but it's got a certain spirit to it. And that spirit is both liveliness, and to a certain extent like a message and an implication. Therefore it's called Ruach Chaim, and that goes down into the what can take that in the heart, the Chol HaYamini. Because he points out in Tanya, the right ventricle, the right section of the heart is panui midam. It doesn't really have the inner blood, and it's able to take spiritual messages. And that's a form of like emotional type readiness and a hisayrus inside that. And then it passes it over into the left ventricle where the dam is. Once you get to the dam, well, then it spreads out to all the other Evorim. And so we see that the heart is like a middle point. It's got an upper part to it which is closer to the moichel, a lower part of which is shy to all the rest of the body, and therefore it joins the lave and it joins the ivorim and the moyach together, and therefore it's called a mamutza, because it's well known that a mamutza's got both aspects. It's got a higher aspect lagabi the higher, the mashpia, and a lower level lagabi the makabel. That's what a mamutza is. So therefore he says, "Ni a leivu mamutza bein a moyach l'share ivorim." The ikar shows achayes ubereisha kadei shiyumshach min hamoyach achayes lahachyes. You have to give life force to all the ivorim gashmim. Walidei alev shemiya moyach nimshach haruach chayim becholol hayomini shebelev umispashit be'adam shebecholol hasmoli, and it spreads out and goes over from the cholol hayomini into the cholol hasmoli. Well, that's where the blood is. V'huinyan is chabros ruach chayim with the dam, and that's called v'huinyan is chabros ruach v'nefesh. In other words, the two, we know that we have three main levels in the soul: nefesh, ruach, and neshama. So how do ruach and nefesh connect together? Well, that's how they connect. They connect in the cholol hasmoli, and from the cholol hasmoli, in Nimshach, what it got from the brain, the ruach into nefesh. So that's called a union. So he said in the Zohar Kodesh, that's a union, is chabras, to joining together of ruach v'nefesh, dechar nukva, male and female, masculine and female, kamishkosa b'zoya b'saba demishpotim, as written in the Zohar in what's called the Saba of Pasha Mishpotim. That was last week's Pasha, not this week's Pasha, but last week's Pasha. And there's a famous section right from the beginning of Pasha Mishpotim up to a certain daf in the Zohar Kodesh, which is called Saba de Mishpatim. It was said by a certain Zokin, and it's called, it's all messages from him. But again, there's certain inyanim, and that's called the Saba de Mishpatim. It's very, very high, and especially in Yonim, and therefore it's called a name, Saba de Mishpat. So over there, in that area, the Zohar Kodesh, it says that the union of the Char Nukve, of Zohar and Nekeva, well, that's the union of the Ruach with the Nefesh. In other words, the Nefesh is like the Nekeva, the Ruach is like the Zohar, and they get together through the passage of the Ruach, which is Chayim, into the nefesh through the medium of the chol hasmoli of the lay. Umishom, and from there, nimshach adam b'chol ha'evorim. Once you get into the chol hasmoli, then it goes into all the limbs. Shehu ha'ika ha'chayis ha'machayis ha'evorim. Well, that's what causes the evorim to have their chayis from the heart. Kiyadua and kamuvan. So it all began in the moyach, and its ultimate aim was to get to all the ivorim. How does it do that? It goes through the lave. And in the lave gufa, so it goes from one ventricle into the other. So we see that the lave is like the main joining up point of the lower to the higher, and it's therefore called a mamutza. He writes, "Mamutza hu ha-lave," and the middleman is the lave. Or below zeh efshar. It's not shayach sheyumshach hachayis min hamoyach le'evorim. It's too high, too in a rock, one to the other. The moyach is very, very high and detached, and the evorim are very almost chumnias. They're almost like material in their way of living. But from the moyach to the evorim, it's too distant. Therefore, you have to have a middle point. That middle point is the lave, and the lave receives the ruach chayim and passes it over into the makabel, which is the evorim. So now, on the basis of that whole moshel, we're going to build up a nimshal. We're going to just finish the moshel. V'lochein, in the basis of all we just said, k'shiyikre, that's a misprint. There should be, instead of an aleph, it should be a hey. Because k'shiyikre, when it will happen, chas v'sholom, Eza kilko bi'aleiv, and therefore if there'll be some malady in the heart. Kilchul meaning like a ruination or a spoilment. There'll be some upset in the heart. Ratzain Lema or Rahman in Atlan maybe. Hashem should guard us. Ein achayis mishpashet kol kach be'evorim. And therefore, once something's wrong with the heart, then the chayas can't really reach the evorim. It's not able to be mishpashet only minimally in the evorim. V'chol gufei nechlash alidei kilkul halev. And therefore his whole body becomes weakened through the upset or the melody in the heart, like we see b'pashtas. Shehu ika hamamutza shemekabel min hamoyach umashpil evorim. And that's a mamutza. Yeah, mamutza takes on a higher level and gives out further to a lower level. And that's the function of a mamutza. So if the heart chas v'shalom is affected, all the other evorim get affected. And therefore, if a person's got, one heart melody, his whole goof is out of all, not completely, but it doesn't, it only functions in a minimal efficiency. So we see then that we got a very delicate chayas that goes from a moyach, and it gradually becomes more shy to a more gashmius or almost chumius type of chayas, through the medium of the heart. And the heart, therefore the Alter brings in Tanya, in Perek Tezayin, that the heart is chumri kesha evorim. The heart has a mila that it's like materialistic like all the other evorim. However, it's also got a mila that's a little bit not that way as well. It's also able to live in a ruchnistic and receive ruchnistic messages from the moyach. But its mila is that it's like the other evorim in the sense that are shot to material and to gashmias. Mashing the moyach not. The moyach just can't possibly achieve that. Therefore, we need the emtoyas of the lay. So that's the marshal. Now we're going to build in Ruchnias. What is the nimshal? What is the thing we're comparing it to? Okamoy in a similar way, yuvan ba'avida b'nefesh adam. We'll understand in the Ruchnias purely Aveda of the Nefesh of the Adam, meaning to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. The Nefesh, Aveda, the Nefesh Adam means his service to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Dehine Ramach Pikudim, that's one on brought down in Tanya, also in Perek Dalet. That's very interesting. It's interesting how we see the different bullseyes. Once again, Ramach Pikudim, Aim Ramach Evorim Damalke. It's one on that the 248 mitzvahs are say. Pikudin, an Arabic word for mitzvah. Mitzvahs, orders, literally. The 248 mitzvahs are say, they are Ramach Evorim Damalke. They are Kaviyochu, the 248 limbs of the king, meaning the Eivishter. The Kaviyochu, they're the limbs of the Eivishter. V'shasor loisasei, and the 365 negative commandments, aim shasor gidim, that the mention's got, apart from 248 limbs, according to the Mishnah in Oiles, he's also got shasor gidim. Now gidim mean like blood cells and sinews, where all the blood throws through and all that sort of thing, joins different things together. They're called gidim. So they're connected with the mitzvahs loisaseh. So altogether you got tariag, like limbs and gidim in the makeup of the body of the mensch. Ukadei shiyeh achayes beha evorim the maisa hamitzvahs. So here, notice carefully how the nimshal works. That the mitzvahs, they are the Eibishter's evorim. They are, and why are they called the Eibishter's evorim? Because the purpose of the function of an Eva is that it eventually receives the chayas and it draws, as it were, the chayas, or it calls on the chayas from the nefesh. So in the same way, the mitzvahs, they have elikus in them. They're like the Eibishter sending forth chayas, Kaviochel, from himself into the world through the mitzvahs. So that when we do a mitzvah, we create energy. We let forth energy, which is the chayas that we let forth into the world. So the mitzvahs are like the Evorim. They're called the Eibishter's Evorim. And the Moyach here is the Av of a Yira, which we're supposed to do, the mitzvahs. In other words, that, well, in Emerson, the Moyach would be higher than that. The Moyach would be Kavioch in Elakus, Lamaila. And the way we mashpia into the world is that we're Makayim, the Evorim, which are the mitzvahs, through Av of a Yira. What Av is not the Moyach, Av of a Yira is the Leiv. In other words, our Leiv in the middle between the Eivishter and the mitzvahs is our Leiv of Av of a Yira. So it's a little bit delicate, so it's slightly different, but it's the same principle. That we have the mitzvahs coming from Hashem. The ultimate mitzvahs have to be in Gashmias, but that's like the Evorim. Has to be in the physical world. In the middle is us, and we keep the mitzvahs. If we keep the mitzvahs by Av of a Yira, that's like a heart in the middle. It's like running the main chayas from Hashem through a mamutza that it can reach into Gashmi. Now what he means chayas, he means enthusiasm and bren, not just any old how. Yeah, enthusiasm and fire in keeping the mitzvahs. By one the mitzvah who alidei beginners ava voyira, or just like we see, it's through the heart. The mamutza is the heart. So here the mamutza is the Adam, the Yid, that he has to have Ava v'yira. Who beginners Ava v'yira. The Ava who makir ramak mitzvahs asay. If you have love, then you do all the mitzvahs asay. V'yira makir l'shah shah mitzvahs loisasa. That's what he brings. Okay, my supposed saves you putting Perek Dalet. That's exactly what he says in Perek Dalet. So we're just a short way away from that. Another shiur will be right there. Which goes by saves you putting Perek Dalet. The key mitzvahs asay hu alidei av udavke. Mipnei shehu oyev es Hashem v'chofetz l'davke boy. If you love the Eibishter, then you want to be dovuk in him, you want to be close to him and cleave to him. You can't be dovuk in the Eibishter when he's unlimited. Ki'im alidei mitzvahs, davke for keeping the mitzvahs, but poil down here in the physical world, well, that binds you up with the mitzaveh. And as well known that the word mitzvah is from Lashon tzavsa. What tzavsa means, like a joining of people together, a group of people who are all joined together. Called a tzavsa or a tzevet. In the same way, the mitzvahs join us up with the Eibishter, which normally, in inverted commas, is impossible. Normally, it's not shayar. But through the mitzvahs, then we join up with Hashem. And we can suggest that that's what the mitzvahs are, that they're, like we said before, the Evorim. Why are they called Evorim? Because they draw out of Hashem hamshochas and kilui of the Eibishter into the world. So how do we do that? Through Aviyah. We're like a lave in the middle, that the Elikus is coming down. It can't reach the world because the world is too low. But through the fact that we have Aviyah, we bring those hamshochas from the Eibishter into the world. V'yiro makir shasar mitzvahs loisase. Sheyorei limrid boy. Yeah, oy shemizboishes, like we saw in Perek. He's ashamed. Lava el rotzen hamelech lefonav. We're always standing in front of Hashem. Everybody's in front of the Eibishter. So how could you possibly do a thing that he doesn't want, and even in front of him? Okay, that's like the Moshe. The Moshe is the mitzvahs are the Evorim. The Eibishter is as it were a Moyach, which is giving forth this very delicate Oyer Ein Sof, Hamshochas. We are in the middle, and we are like the lave. If we have Aviyira, then we're a good lave. If we don't have Aviyira, then we're a sort of a faulty lave. Hamshochas Hamidas Shebelev, Umebchinas Hamoichin. Oh, how do we get our midas? How do we bring about our midas Shebelev? How do we become like the heart in the middle? That we have midas Shebelev, Umi Hamoichin. And that comes through the union of Chochmah Bina. Shalideya is bonanas, Shemizboinen, B'moichei. Begedulas Ein Sof, Neilodim Bechinas Midas shebaseichel, like we saw. That's the first thing that happens. First, we have this in his pilot sichlius, that the brain appreciates in a very principled way that it's good to be davuk in this Indian. It's not yet a feeling in the heart, but it's a general feeling of wanting the good, of being davuk and cloven to the good. And that's called Dechilu Urochimu Sikliyim. Noeladim Bechinis Midas Shabasego Shahim Dechilu Urochimu Siklim. Now Dechilu Urochimu is the Aramaic for Yira ve'ava. Dechilu is Yira, Urochimu is Ava. Sikliyim, they're within the brain. Vahim Nimshochim Alidei Meitza Hakorin Vanasim Moichin Lamide Shebeleir. Ad Shagam Beliboy is poel Bechinis Midas Ava ve'Yira b'murgash. Now, here the Rebbe is hinting at a whole Seder. First of all, you have Midas Shebaseichel, his pilot sicklies. And then he said it's got to go down to the Meitza Hagorin. It's got to go down through the throat pipes, get into the heart. So those throat pipes are ruchnis, of course. There's a whole passage where there's likely to be the Sari Para and others are likely to get in and interfere. Well, that's a big Indian exodus without going into the dangers and the difficulties of getting through the how do you call it, the strait of the throat. But anyway, that's the ultimate aim, that you got to get from the moichin, these pilots of the moichin, which are called midas shebaseichel. You got to get what's called seichel shebamidas. You got to go down a Indian where the moichin have now entered the realm of the midas. That's called seichel shebamidas. That's what he said. Shalideis bonan shebamizbeinim b'moichi. Because the neilodim bechinas midas shebaseichel. Yes, shahim dechilon achim seklim. Vahim nimshochim alidei, the strait of the throat. Vanasim moichin lemidas. Now moichin lemidas is called seichel shebamidas. Not midas shebaseichel, no, seichel shebamidas. That's called moichin lemidas. That's a much lower level, which is already prompting the midas and pushing them and bringing them out of their state of helem. Ad shagam beliboy yispoel, until finally in his heart he is affected bechinas midas avavayira b'murgash. Then he feels avavayira mamish in the feeling of the heart. Well, that's the final aim. So we go from midas shebaseichel through the Meitza Hagorin, then seichel shebamidas, then midas. That's the way it works. B'murgash v'oz mamela mispashet hachayas ba'avodim, and then the life force, meaning the enthusiasm and the brain and the excitement and the koch of Ava v'Yira, that will go out in into the limbs. What are the limbs here in our whole nimshal? Sheim ramach mitzvah sesiv v'shasor chulu, shasor mitzvah loisasir. Oh, Evamera, that's the ideal Seder. That's how it's supposed to go. That's how it's supposed to be. Ach, kisheina nishu believe, yeah, rotzein aleim she'ena mispoil beliboy, when it's not nimshing into the heart, meaning that he's not mispoil mamish beliboy, he's not affected emotionally in his heart, be'ava v'yira, meaning b'murgash. Mamela, ena mispashet be'ivodim, therefore, it doesn't go into the mitzvahs, which are the Ivorim. Shem mibchinas techilu rochimu sichlim, beloy emtsoyes amidas shebelev, without the middle point, the mamutza, or the midas shebelev, loy yove, he won't come alidei zeh lekayim amitzvahs klal kediboy lemehevi. In other words, only from these midas shebaseichel. If you want to rely on that, you'll never get to kiyum amitzvahs mamish how it should be. In other words, it will be a bit sort of hey chitesi, you'll feel that that's good, and you'll feel how do you call it, a certain what's the word, a certain impression that's a worthy thing to keep the kiyum mitzvahs and to do mitzvahs, do them properly. But it's a general enthusiasm. It's not a real koch from the heart and pressing a person into it with excitement. So therefore he said, from those midas shabbat you won't come to the keeper of the mitzvahs kedeboy lemahevi like it's really meant to be. Kedeboy as the rotzen lemahevi to be. Now that means, like he says in Tanya, that you can't have Avaviyira Amiti. You can't have maybe Avaviyira like we saw, Demiyena Shah in today's Perek. In Tanya we learned that. You can have maybe, imagery, but you don't necessarily have, and you can't have genuine midas. Therefore he said, Va'ika heima midas shebalayv. The Ika is a midas shebalayv. Even though, as I pointed out earlier, they're a low madrega, they're not such a delicate. Again, that's what he hints at in Tanya, that the midas shebatoich ha-seichel are a very high level. They're a very elevated level, but they're not able to ultimately achieve what we really want. Va'ika heima midas shebalayv ukanal b'moshel, like we saw in the moshel. If you don't have the lay functioning, then chas v'sholem, the rest of the ivorim also become weakened, and they become sort of not. So same thing here. If your heart's not with Ava V'yira, then your mitzvahs are sort of, hechitesi, kilo. Yeah, but Moshe, v'chein on a roim b'chush, ba'aveda, she'ika chayes, enthusiasm and brain, b'maisa ha-mitzvahs, in the keeping of the mitzvahs, b'poyo, hu mi'ais pilas Ava V'yira mugashois. Davke, when you feel it in the heart, davke, b'midas shebalahiv. Well, that's when you keep and that's what the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Dalet, that Makayim on be'emes, he who keeps the mitzvahs in a genuine way, who are oyev Hashem Hashem, v'chofetz l'davke boy. He's got a pneumistic brain to be davke dovok in Hashem, or he keeps the mitzvah. So we can see you've got to get to that, his pilus, mamish b'murgash in the heart, that's the Olam Tachlis. And if you don't have that, then you don't really have the mitzvahs the way the Alter Rebbe would prefer you to have, or assume that you should have it. That's a pretty sobering thought. Ach, he said, Pulas ha-moichin, ha-me'inim b'chinas ha-midas shebeleiv, hu de mipchinas is galas ha-midas, yochel liyes achizas ha-chitonium, k'ma shechos mochim acher. Pulas ha-moichin, ha-me'irim b'midas, hu shelo yeh yanike le-chitonium. And here the Rebbe is hinting it's interesting here in this Maimai, he hints at whole great chapters of Inyanim which are brought down in other places. And that is that he says that the moichin, if you're functioning right in your Avodas Hashem, then the moichin don't go down through the Meitzah Goren and the whole thing and then produce midas shebalev, and then they just withdraw. If they do, then that's not good. Even when you've already got the midah functioning and you already feel genuine Avodah Hashem, it's proper and it's the correct function that the moichin should continue to be meir into the midah. They like to keep feeding and prompting the midah. Even though the etzem midah may not need to be prompted a great deal, because the midah, once it takes off with its own feeling, it's got its own shortish benefits from whence it can derive its bread. To touch it all off is a difficulty, which you have to go for this whole Seder. However, says the Rebbe, there's a inyan with the moichin continue shining into the midas afterwards. So what do we need that for? So he says, because from midas b'murgash in the heart, there can be a yanika lechitonium, can't there? Got to keep your mind on what we're doing. So, what does that mean? Since these midas are b'murgash, then they can drift a little bit into inyanim. So it's important that the Baal Shem Tov said, for example, that a mensch can feel ava b'shas ha-tefillah, and once the tefillah, it goes back into the world, and the moichin tend to depart from the midas that he had, then he can be attracted to other things as well. Because ava is a feeling of attraction and nearness to something. So instead of the ava being purely in elikus, it can drift over into something which is not Beseder. And he can be attracted to all sorts of things. And that can lead to what's called a taiva. Yeah, either for any Indian in the world, eating for money, but all sorts of different things. And so the koyach hachesed and ava, which was meant to be velakus, drifts aside. And therefore it's written that somebody has yira, for example, b'shas atfila, and he's really, for ton matira, then when he's finished down, he can get very easily angry. He has to be very careful. He can fly into because yira is gvura. As he can fly into a gvura, he can see other people who he doesn't think are beseder, when he'll get angry and he'll trash them and everything. And that's not, you're not supposed to do that. Particularly with people that are not really, shy to you, kokach, and you get angry at them and you shrey and carry on. That's not the right way to behave. Therefore, that can happen, mitzad, that once the moichin retreat a bit from the midah, then the midah can drift a little bit, because it's murgas, it's a feeling, it can drift into chitonius. And therefore he can get angry, even with his own family or with people. You get angry, it's not really the way he should act. It's not really a necessary reason to have got angry. And therefore, that's a unique chitonium from the yira that there was in Downing. So, it's a pretty serious business here. A mensch, he had a ultimate aim in the whole Veda, and it can drift aside. And therefore, the answer to that is that the moichin should continuously be me'ir in the midah, even though in a certain way they may not, the midas, mitzadetzim minyonam, they may not need that, because they have their own power now, mitzad, the midas, shebe'etzim and everything. But they need always to be guarded, and as we're guided a bit by the seichel. Therefore, it's a good thing for the Purus HaMoichin, but they are meya b'hamidas, well, that protects them, that protects the midas, that there shouldn't be an achiza l'chitonium. O Purus HaMoichin ha'meinim b'midas hu shelo yeh yenichus achitonium. Sure. Well, it looks a good formula. Here we got midas b'moichin, going through the Meita Hagoren, become Moichin Sheba Midas, and now that's produced the actual Midah, and he's got Avos Hashem and all this good stuff, and he's also careful to keep the Moichin. But the Rebbe said we've forgotten one very important, this the whole plot thickens, we've forgotten one very important factor here, and that is that how do you get through the Meita Hagoren, and how do you get enough chayas and enough motivation and enough kesher with the heart to get through the Meita Hagoren and to bring those midas sheba moichin down to become moichin sheba midas and produce the whole thing. How do you do that? How does that work? He said, that's das. So that's the function of das. Like we saw today in the Tanishya, that das is the deep sense of the person being himself involved, that it's his inyan. In seichel, it's the inyan. In the heart, it's my inyan v'odech. How do you get from my inyan to a inyan to my inyan? I should really be nogea in the thing. Well, that's that. So in other words, what we could say in a general way is that the moyach understands, yes, shezeh dovet toiv, beli nagia. How do you call it? Untouched, what's the expression? Pure. And the person needs to feel that thing is nageya. It's important and meaningful to me. That's called nageya. How do we get from the detachment of understanding in the moyach, Eiksha Dova Hu Toiv, Toiv Be'etev, how do I get to Lito? It's good for me in a way that I'm verkocht and I'm touched, I'm Nogeya, Bekolador. So he said that the Abishah gave a special gift called das. The das is the feeling on the part of the person that he's here and he's important. So that's what I call today in the Tani Shul. I think I'm not far from being correct. That's what we call holy self-feeling. It's feeling yourself, being aware of yourself in a way that's good. That's the way the Abishah wanted you to use your feeling of yourself. In other words, that there's a power in the brain which makes me feel that this is a message to me and my whole life is involved in this, and it's nogea to me, Lashuva Avas Hashem. It's part of my life, and that's my aim, and that's why I was brought here into the world. I should have Avas Hashem. Das bin ich. In a way that it means something to me, and it's my life. That's called das. That's the power. Oh, once that starts functioning, then the message will get through, because the das is pulling it down, and it's like a pulling, how do you call it, function, and a pulling instrument that Hashem put in there. I never should pull it down through the difficulties that the mates are caught and never get it into the heart. But there's a das. That's what he says now. Ach, meaning, however, b'kdei sheyumshach min hamoyach lalev, that should be nimshach from the moyach into the heart. Yeah, all that we've said is true, but how is that going to function? So he said, Hu alidei das davke, shu b'chinas das taktoin, shemakashe b'chinas hamoychin bihamidas. Like we saw, there's das elyon. Well, that's a higher union. That's in the moyachin, chokhmah bina. But here we're talking tachlis. How do we get down into the lev? Or das taktoin, shemakashe b'chinas hamoychin bihamidas. Dahainu, kishem is boinen besikloi ba'eze is bonenes, and he will be misboinen in some form of his bonenes, or some form of deep reflection in Elikus. Yispoel beliboy mis bonenes, he should take, be affected in his heart, from that is bonenes. V'loi kamoy shechoishev ezadova, she'eino nogea latzmosei. And not that he should see this as something that, he's been thinking about, but it doesn't really matter to him. He should see and feel that it matters to him. And that's the meaning of das. Das is how you feel yourself, and this means you. That's important to you, and this is your life, and nobody's got to have it. Das is the pulling of it down into the feeling of the self, but a holy feeling of the self. Because if you feel yourself just stomachly, then you can run after everything with Google eyes for the whole world, because you feel yourself. You got to feel yourself, but you got to feel yourself in a way that Elikus is nogea to you. And that's it. That's the union of das. That you shouldn't think about it as being something that doesn't matter to you. Eno nogea le'atzmusei. Ke'im sha'is bonenes yagia el levovei mamish, that it should come down into his heart, and it should touch and reach his heart. Yeshi evolid mizeh ha'ava v'yira. Ultimately, they should be born out of it. Oh, so now once again we go back into the realm of Gashmias, and the Rebbe describes it now once again back in the moshel of how man functions in everyday life in the world. And that's what he says now. Kamoy al der moshel midos ava v'yira Gashmias. Yeah, the midos of ava v'yira in the physical world. Let's take an example. Let's say he loves something in Gashmias. He really likes something and he's attracted. Yeah. Masha oyev dover hatoiv, what he loves, things which are good for him. Or misyorei, and he's afraid, right? And he draws away me'adover hamazikloi, from something which can damage him or not good for him. Yeah. So he said, Hu alidei adas tavke. That also goes through das. Ruinin hargoshes atzmus. That's what he feels his own self. Hargoshes atzmius. He feels his own self. Shemargish nafshay. He's aware very much. How do you call it? He's very, very self-aware. Very, very. He feels not just aware, but he, like verkocht, he feels himself. Beloshen Ashkenaz der Hert. Der Herr, I'm sorry, der Herr von sich sehr stark. The feeling of the self, very strong. Daher means like not just hearing, but really hearing deep in a pneumius of your own self. So he said that's what das is in simple life. Das is what binds you over to think, oh yeah, that's a good thing, or that's for me, I have to have it. And how do you say that? Because you think that you're important. You're magish your own self very much. So whatever's good has to be for you. And he said, mitzad avas atzmai, and mitzad the love of himself, rotzein eloima avas hanefesh, arayu chovetz ma'ed, bispashas achayas hanefesh, she is pashat bagul. So now the Rebbe is connecting. He's sort of making it a little bit edel, the whole thing. Because we're just going to, he feels himself. Who knows what that could lead us to think, what it means he feels himself. So therefore, the Rebbe, what it means is that not just he loves himself, but he loves his nefesh. And he knows that the nefesh is his life, and therefore he's devoted to what is good for his nefesh. And he feels that very, very deeply. And therefore, what does a mensch want? He wants his nefesh should be mispashed in the guf. And he would hate anything that might stop, anything like illness or malady or weakness or things like that they stop his pashas on nefesh. So he hates that, as it were, and he abhors that, he pushes it away. Over the spreading of the nefesh in the body, that he's very devoted to. So he said that's what we mean by loving of the self, or the feeling of the self. Not just feeling the body and wanting things in a chumanistic sense, but wanting that the neshama and the nefesh, they should be ever present in your body in the way which is good for you, meaning good chayes. That's what he said. That's what it means, being bound up with yourself in gashmi. Amamira, he said, kumtois, that you want that everything should be good for yourself, and therefore you want that the nefesh should be mispashi and give forth life undisturbedly inside your body, not because you want the body, but because you want life. You love the idea of the spashtus achayis. You love life. Therefore you want what's good for your life. That's it. And now he goes on to say, just like we saw in that whole moshe over here, in the same way we're going to go back now into the nimshal. And so the same way, you have to be devoted with that whole feeling that there should be nimshach elakus through your act of Yiddishkeit, Torah mitzvahs, into your life and into the world around you. You should want that in the same way as you want, and you can, and you because that's the koach hadas that was put into your brain. Now that koach hadas as an ability, just like you feel yourself, then you feel elakus should be part of the world and part of you, also because you feel yourself. But it's a holy feeling of the self. It's a good feeling of the self. So I think that's where we'll hold this evening and go away. Tomorrow we'll try to go ahead a bit. But a holiness is a very, very profound Inyan. It's not at all simple. And you've got to be very careful to differentiate one Inyan from the other. Midas Shabbateicha, Moichin to, but Midas, now we've got Das. It's all very, very amazing in knowing. And this whole Inyan of Hagoshes Atzmei needs to be carefully defined. Like I mentioned today in the Tanishir, we also need to sort of carefully work out what goes first and what comes after. Does these kashrus come after this feeling of wanting what's good for your nefesh, or does these kashrus lead to that? And so it appears differently. It's like different. Here it's going to appear that Rebbe says it one way. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But it's a very tricky inyan. Not so simple. It's whole inyan from das. But it's the key to the whole secret of chassidus. That's what the Rav Rashab told this professor. That to bind the moyer to the heart. That's the whole job. So we've got to bring Mashiach nowadays. We've got to function on all levels. Good. All right, so we'll talk about that more tomorrow. already turned off. So it went blank.
Yeah, it's we got this.
That's finished. Finish over there.